Well, hello everyone. Thanks very much for joining us this afternoon. Thanks very much again for the introduction. As you can see, the title of this Fireside Chat is Planning a 50-Year Asset in a World That Changes Every Second, which I think is a nicely kind of intriguing title for what we're going to be talking about. To discuss that, we've got Ed Graham here, who's a founder and managing director of GK EPM. Hello, Ed. Welcome to the event.
Yeah, hello everyone. Thank you, Ed.
And also Andy King, who is a senior director for product management at Oracle EPM.
Ed and Ed.
Yes.
I'll tell you, it's
CNNG, exactly. This good stuff.
Ed, could you tell us a bit about GK EPM? What is it you do?
Yes, we are a consultancy partner for Oracle. We are on a mission to improve financial planning. So, what we see is that long-term asset planning, you should have that be able to do different scenarios on demand. And to do that, you need obviously an automated planning solution. You need the ability to change your assumptions when you need to change them.
Right. And so, particular relevance to the gas industry then, because as you say, you have some of these very long-lived assets might have multi-decade lives, and can obviously be very hard to plan those in very volatile markets.
Yeah, so you've got cash flows, I guess, at the end of the life, isn't it? Like decommissioning your assets, you've got like cash flows up front, and then you've got your kind of operational cash flows. So you need to be able to plan your CapEx, your SOPEX, your OPEX, and obviously production, and then you need to be able to change your assumptions. And yeah, it's if you're doing a 50-year-old asset, it's hard to do in a spreadsheet. So you need a system.
And so, Andy, tell us about where you come in at Oracle then. What's your role in this?
So not the data center area, which I think has been talking about data centers.
And we're going to be talking about very soon.
Very soon, yeah. So that's not me, unfortunately. That's someone else. Now, I sit within our applications business, and I look after an area across the EMEA of our tooling called Enterprise Performance Management. Okay, it's at the top of the tree for applications. We talk about it as a single source of truth. And actually, I look after in particular a piece that, quite like your strap line, I look after intelligent connected planning. And it's that capability where we turn to manage those systems. So everyone's tool of choice, Excel, try that out the cold dead hands of people in industry. But actually, we all know the issues are with Excel. And it's about being able to put that into a robust framework that still gives you that flexibility. I look after the tooling that I believe helps organizations in this room, but it does help some organizations in this room. And so we're just on stage to look at the sort of things that Ed was just talking about. We'll probably reflect on that in the rest of the session.
Absolutely. So then, let's talk a little bit about Excel then, and why that's not an effective tool necessarily, or the challenges that using that creates. So do you want to talk through this then? You talk about having kind of hundreds of thousands of different spreadsheets as being the alternative to what you do. Why is that?
Yes, let me talk about an example. So we work with Neo Energy, and they've just been merged with Repsol UK upstream assets, and now they're merging again with Total UK assets. So they need a scalable planning system where their assets are growing by times 4. So, before we got involved, they had, let's say 100 assets.
And so just talking about, they're a UK E&P basically, right? They're North Sea producers.
Yeah, North Shore. Only North Shore at the moment.
Yeah.
And financed by High Tech, which is a private equity.
Anyway, so I interrupted. Go ahead. Yeah.
So they got 100 assets. They've got a complex spreadsheet to plan every asset. So they plan their OPEX, their SOPEX, their CapEx, their production for each asset in like a complex spreadsheet. And so that's 100 spreadsheets. They do that. They've got a monthly forecast, and then they want to do 3 or 4 scenarios per month. So you're talking 100 times 12 times 3, 4,000 spreadsheets they need to maintain over a year period. So it's not feasible really. So you need a system to do this.
Right. And then there is software, but how does it work? The relationship with Oracle is what?
So Oracle's the vendor. They obviously provide the tooling. We are a great believer in customized solutions because if you come to what we call revenue planning or supply and demand planning, each company has their own specific way of building their revenue, building their demands, and they know what their assumptions are and how to change it. So it's a little bit more generic by industry, but then by company they really have to have customized models. So what we do is we take the tool set that Oracle develops, and then we try and stay on the kind of bleeding edge of their technology and implement the new stuff that's coming up.
Right.
But their tool set's used by the biggest companies in the world. I was at HSBC, I was at Barclays. They all use this tool.
Right. Got it. And so this is not kind of it's not a specialist thing designed for the energy industry. It's used across a number of different. Right. And so, in terms of Oracle for that, so again, you are providing that software platform then that these various different companies can use, and you would apply that to a number of different industries, right?
Yeah, absolutely. As I said earlier, if you think about that dynamic, what we're trying to do is break down those silos, because we can't do the planning in isolation. We've sat on a couple of sessions today, sort of maybe the demand or supply side, or we bring in the cost and the capital expenditure and the funding and the equity and all these plans. It's about breaking that down in a level to be able to do all sort of turn and die. So being able to do lots and lots of scenario modeling, risk assessment, Monte Carlo simulations around the whole financial planning aspect. Because what you need to be able to back up the complex decisions that we're just hearing in the group before us is, we've got to be able to back that up with data and good, informed, connected, intelligent plans. So that, nowadays, where, and again, I think it was Mark in the previous session at the start was saying, would Mackenzie give us a 20-year price on something? We know that's changed. So how do we make then the models really sensitive to be able to turn the car? So what if this changes? Well, actually, let's model for all those different things. You were saying about the data centers that we were talking just before. So we have different opinions. So let's model those different opinions and all the bits in between. And so we can make informed decisions. So we make solutions that are capable to support that. Like Excel is a tool you can choose to use. We have a tool that's there, has lots of built-in capabilities around, understands what balance sheets, cash flows, or understands financial aspects, understands how to bring data together. And that's what we bring. Ed and his team will then bring the expertise around what does an energy organisation require in that solution.
Because as you said, it sounds a bit like what we do at Wood Mac. We are providing data analytics and insight to inform capital allocation decisions to help companies invest. So, but this is.
So I think one way to look at it is that your company, you go out to all the producers and you ask for their forecast for what their assets are producing. The forecasts that come from models like the ones that we're developing. So we're actually providing the numbers that you're benchmarking, using in your benchmarking.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Gotcha.
And I think nowadays, sorry, I didn't interrupt, but one of it's maybe not difficult sometimes to prepare those forecasts, whatever tool you use. It's about having confidence in them and then being able to take them to the decision makers and the leaders, whether they're low down in the organisation or they're very senior, and to be able to say, I have faith in these numbers, I've modelled them, I have the confidence, and let's work through that. And again, you can't do that if you haven't done enough modelling, you haven't done enough understanding of what's happening. What are the drivers to that change for those models that you put together?
So you're talking, for instance, about demand modelling as being a particular focus. Tell me about that. What kind of demand do you model and how do you do that?
So I think, as I said, like every company needs a demand model. They need to plan the revenue is where you start your planning cycle, and that drives the rest of your budget effectively. So if you can work out your drivers for your revenue, and then you can change your assumptions, and you can come up to a good answer.
Right. So, and again, walk me through an example then. So what would be the inputs you'd use then to model demand?
So, obviously you've got your volume. So you've got your volume by assets. We talk about planning a 50-year-old asset for over the life of the field, or the life of the asset. You've got your revenue, you've got your production curve, and then you've got to estimate the prices, which are valid over that year, over that term. And obviously, it's almost impossible to forecast prices. So you've got to model lots of solutions, and we call this kind of sensitivity analysis. So, like with every model, you could do like a 10% less price, higher 10% price, you 10% less volume, higher volume. You could do all these kind of 5 models, produce those at a touch of a button, because we believe in like automated planning. Andy and I, we did a lot of work in financial services as well. And there's this whole similar thing about stress testing, wasn't it?
Yeah, and you think, and again, in the previous session, we were talking about this, about them, deciding about, lending money to organisations. And again, I think they're different people. But the banks would use, for example, to looking at, mortgage books over 30 years, and then being able to look at, all the macroeconomic factors that impact, mortgages and the funding of mortgages, as well as obviously the aspect of the retail piece. They don't just do 1 or 2 models and work out what that looks like. They'll take 300, 400 economic factors and model that, then millions of combinations, to really truly understand what that stress and the risk looks like for that particular profile, that cohort of 30-year mortgages. So if we're looking at the sort of things in this chapter is, we've got these long-term investments, rather than just having a few variables that we can tweak up and down. Again, you could do that in Excel, that's fine. How do we do this in hundreds of thousands of different ways? Truly understand the risk and the impact of that into the cash. And then, how do we fund this? Do we do it in, equity? Do it, again, talking in the previous section, equity versus, funding versus borrowing, et cetera, et cetera. But yes, the more you've got there in that single source of truth, the more connected, the more that decision is based on fact rather than estimation.
Right, and all of that, like you're saying, is integrated into that one model. So you've got, as you say, your demand, prices, supply, costs, financing, all in one box.
Yeah, and again, when you look at costs, I know, it's an element of it, but the costs again is about understanding the full cost of you delivering the service and that product. Because your HR service centres, your IT costs, they have to be allocated and absorbed out. So it's fully absorbed costing and understanding. We are organisations using the tools to do product and customer profitability. There are many things. So, as another sector, retail, you go into some of the stores around here, they'll understand by shelf how profitable that shelf is, and that's the tooling that we deliver. Right? And think about the costs there around one of the coloured supermarkets. They'll be able to tell you, and it's all those jobs coming down together. That's the sort of tooling you're doing, brilliantly.
And if you can provide these cash flows to your bankers, isn't it? They're going to understand your business a lot more. And we've got this one customer that's got like a resource backed loan. So if they find more oil, they don't need to pay back the loan. So it kind of pays for itself.
And so, in terms of sort of adoption in the energy industry, so you mentioned Neo Energy, you've got a couple of other upstream clients, right? And some in oilfield services.
Yeah, so we're doing work for Trident Energy, which is kind of upstream oil and gas out of Africa and Brazil. We did some work for Petrofax. It's not our fault they went bankrupt. I'm also doing work for Sunbelt Rentals, which is like an asset-heavy company just renting out industrial equipment. I think they just listed on the New York Stock Exchange.
Yeah. And in terms of the way you see the energy industry and comparisons with adoption in other sectors, retail, financial services that you work in, are there learnings that you can carry across from one sector to the other?
Yeah, we're the largest provider in this sort of tooling space, by quite some way. If we're on the energy sort of oil and gas and that sort of sector as a whole, we have many hundreds of customers, so again, ranging from smaller up to, very large organizations across the globe. If you look across other sectors, I think, one in particular, it's always been very, close around our tool and I've worked with a lot in is adjacent is mining. And it's that whole life of mine and being able to do, again, that scenario modeling at that high level of being able to understand, so what if we, what's our direction in terms of that particular mine, and the full cost and life of mine. I think financial services, which is funny enough, is actually the largest sector we have. And again, the tooling there is to make those very strategic decisions, and be able to support that decision making. And I think the strap line, we're looking at that world's changing every second in financial services, being able to make and understand those claims. And obviously since 2008 and, the issues that is the sector, we've seen a huge uplift in using these types of tools to get a better handle, because Excel is a great tool, but it's still a personal productivity tool. It is not a robust application that we can use in that sort of senior decision making.
So where is this kind of software? Where are these tools going in the age of AI then? Again, Wood Mackenzie is something we're thinking about very intensively at the moment. A lot of development work going on in terms of the way we can adapt and change the products we're offering. What does it mean for you?
Yes, I think the first thing we saw was all these tools have gone to the cloud, so you can access them everywhere. You've got data security. You don't have to invest in the infrastructure. The second thing we've seen is that the tools can now do their own predictive forecasting without like a manual input. So you can generate an automatic forecast. The system can be used to generate insights or variance analysis. So this is all kind of available now. The next thing, and I'm sure Andy will work with chat about it, is that Gen AI has been able to explain why you've got variance. And that's kind of the next new thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, for us, AI isn't just about trying to automate and speed things up. That's part of it. We can do that. We can do a lot of that now. Certainly what we're working on, and we've already had, aspects of it out and more coming out in the coming weeks and months, is actually changing the whole way we're trying to do things. Because again, AI, we can potentially speed things up, but it should be more about how do we better understand what's happening? How do we better understand the change, the variance, the reasons, the causality behind where we are compared to where we thought we wanted to be? And for us, that's there. The other big thing, and he's moving towards that more natural language conversation. So we see forecasting, when we talk about forecasting and planning, there's always been a kind of iterative thing, whether it happened daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, that sort of cycle, is actually just changes to outcome based. And we ultimately believe it will be, changing fast. So, we're already integrating in those sort of, natural language interfaces. So what if, asking the system to do that, obviously typing you can speed as well. But, we're working towards those sort of things. So it's that natural language and that change. We're seeing a significant change across applications in business, because we still run in the old way. I don't know about others. My kids are in their early class of their careers and they're going, what the hell is this business software? What's email? The world runs by email and Excel, and they're going, well, I've been doing stuff on my phone for years. And so, the business applications, I think, are still something they catch up.
I was going to say, so this is kind of this, not where we are now, but this AI revolution, this is the thing that is coming very soon.
Yeah, we're on that journey. The early stuff is literally coming out, has been coming out this year, and so, we're making sure that those are robust and delivered in. So for us, it's about being able to change and have that conversation with things to start, rather than you running these models and having someone who sits in a corner and runs these models in Excel. We're now bringing it to the point where anyone could go and just ask a question. And, for me, that's the step change. And again, I know there'll be leaders who won't want to do that, but the whole idea is that we make this simpler for people to do that. And so, okay, show you why, how we're doing against, our plan. Or what do you think the issue is? Or actually do a model with these changes and show me what that looks like. Actually, I like that. Send that to everyone. That's a very step change in where we are.
Yeah, I mean, it is amazing, isn't it? It is really a very exciting time. So you're going to say?
Yeah, I was just going to say this is an exciting time because, if you can just ask your computer to give you the answer, it's going to change, isn't it? Soon we'll be asking, for advice, isn't it? So you say, how can I optimize my business? Or, what's the limits of this?
Right. Yeah.
That's it. We're changing from those assumption models, actually going, I believe I might have an extra $1 million in budget next year for my workforce. Where should I best spend that? Yeah. That's a very different question to start working from the bottom up.
Really is, yeah. No, okay. So exciting being right at the early stages of this revolution. Hope you'll come back again to one of these shows in the future and tell us more about how it's all developed. For now, we're going to have to leave it, but it's been great talking to you, Edgar and King. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ed. And that brings us up